Hello, new kindergarten parents. This is my first of four parent communication videos in the virtual Jumpstart program that we developed over the summer. The teachers looked at each day, and then within that day we aspired to having 3 videos. One that's kind of a personal reveal about each teacher, so you and your student can begin to understand who is going to be responsible for your child's instruction. And then one lesson that's kind of content driven with a little bit of information about that's representative of the school year coming, and then one like this one that's specifically directed towards parents and caretakers. So welcome to Bryant School. Your family is now Bryant Hawks, and there's so much to talk about. So I am the extremely chatty Mr. Kevin G. Gallagher, who always has something to say and has lots to say about it, especially related to kindergarten. And so finding a topic took time. I'm just going to go to my laptop here. I have my topic list over here that I just come back to. And I was thinking one of the first things to do is to just explain the kindergarten year. Kindergarten as an entity is fantabulous. The reason I've been teaching it for decades is the fact that there's nothing like being in the kindergarten classroom. As I often describe it, working in a kindergarten classroom is like living in a sitcom, because there's no better comedy writers than a bunch of 5- and 6-year-olds every day. And I know people have fabulous jobs, and kudos and credits to you for having great jobs. But there's nothing like being a kindergarten teacher. Just saying. Our colleagues are the 5- and 6-year-olds. We see each other and we work with each other. The K-team is extremely collaborative. But we see each other for snippets of the day. We spend the bulk of our day, hours upon hours, with your kids. They are our colleagues. And so, who gets to be in a better collegial situation with your coworkers who, are entertaining and give you hugs and say they love you and write you wonderful notes? K is just the best. I've had the good fortune of, literally in my career, of having taught something at every single grade level, from kindergarten up through graduate school. Kindergarten, I've done the most, but I've had an assignment through different jobs over time at each of the grade levels, including middle school and high school. I taught at high school for a number of years, and then I taught adults becoming teachers through Lesley universities at the undergraduate and graduate levels, so literally K through 16 plus. But K is right here. The K chose me. K is my destiny, and I'm grateful for that, for paying attention when my destiny came calling. And one of the operatives that I do believe that's important is to understand in my work that we aspire to commit a child to a lifelong of learning, and to commit them to education, and specifically public education as a product of New York City public schools, and a teacher in New York City public schools, back east in Seattle. I've been in 2 states, I think it's about 7 or 8 districts, and again, K 16 plus. Teaching is the best, and kindergarten is the best of the best. I think that helping parents and eventually students become educated consumers about the product and service that is education is the goal that I want to chat with you today about. And so in doing so, what I'd like to do is to outline the kindergarten year. The phrase that I came up with last year to help students and colleagues and me understand what we were going through was, we had a typical year from September to March, and then everything shifted and changed, and then we went to remote. We just dove in head first and managed as best we could. And now we are starting the year with that. And I think there's some operatives to take a look at in a typical year through that lens, and then the lens that is remote. And so the kindergarten team have been working and chatting and conversing and emailing and text threading about ideas. We're waiting for the district to give us more specifics about what the year will look like, but we already have some commitments to ourselves and you and the students about what we think is best practices. We hope to synthesize those 2 models together. So what I'd like to do is to just talk about the elements of the kindergarten year in a typical year and remotely, and I'll go back and forth and kind of pointing out when they apply to each of those as well as cohesively to the two. Um, Kindergarten is fantabulous, if I haven't said that enough times already. The kindergarten team at Bryant I find is exceptional. I've been teaching for over 40 years, and the crowd you've got coming your way is exemplary. I'm literally tickled and thrilled to be with them in these final years for me. And we work very closely together. We are good friends already. We communicate tremendously. We each have our individual, strengths, and we rely on each of those, and we lend them to each other, as well as having a sense of cohesion of kindergarten delivery to all the kids in a typical year and remotely. And we have practice with both of those for the last couple of years, and then in the spring period as well. And just as a point of reference, I never talk this quickly to children. My pacing and style with students is much more measured, determined, and I try to remove some of my accent. But when I'm talking to adults, this is it. Just so you know. And so when we look at the idea of the kindergarten year, the operative number one to think about is that our classrooms are standards-based, as are most classrooms around the country. The Common Core Standards, Common Core State Standards, CCSS, are the operative. That's what we teach. How we teach it is the adopted curriculum and curricula. What happens is districts, just talk Seattle at this point, adopts the Common Core State Standards, CCSS, and then they have review committees that shop around for curriculum that they think best supports those standards. And so the standards drive our instruction via the curricular tools we have. And the tools we have in Seattle for ELA, English Language Arts, ELA, is the Center for Collaborative Classroom. And that's a published curriculum, extremely comprehensive. And we use that as our delivery for reading and writing. And then it has elements that are about spoken language and some other strands. Then the other is math and focused. That's the adopted curriculum that supports the math standards. And then this year, new teachers are taking the training this summer in the science, the new science curriculum. We just moved out the formerly used one that was around for a number of years, and there's a new one coming in that the kindergarten team is taking training on. And then we add in specials in classrooms around social studies and creative arts. And that's what fills the day. Specialists, which I think Mr. Jones is talking about at some point, give us that special piece around art. And Bryant has art, music education, and PE. Those are the places where students are supported by a different trained professional. In a typical year, they go to those teachers' rooms, the gym, music room, the art room. Remotely, those teachers provide instructional modules for students to be able to take online. They did that in spring. I'm sure they'll roll out similar and even bigger, better ones for the fall. So that's what drives our instruction throughout the year. The chunks of the year, if we look at it in kinds of terms, fall, winter, and spring. The fall is meeting classmates. Students to be meeting each other, to be meeting their teacher, and then, in both a typical year and a remote year, to expand that relationship to the rest of the kindergarten team. We really do value feeling in contact and connected to all the kids in the kindergarten year. And you'll see that as the year moves along in both typical year and a remote year. And so that's a driving force behind the fall, is bringing that sense of cohesion and helping them experience what a class is. The idea of a classroom and a class is an adult construct. And the idea is to help sell and present that so students feel connected to a group of peers. They feel connected to the trained adult at the beginning, at the front of the classroom. And they also feel like an individual within the context of that group. And so we do that by establishing routines in both places, remote and in a typical year. So students become familiar and feel a sense of competence because they experience the confidence of knowing how to do things. very small and slow rollout, a little bit each day. We'll do that with both formats. So students have a sense of how to manage their tools, property management, tool management, their cool school tools. We threw in rhyming any place we can. Good skill, good ELA skill. ELA means, very nice, English Language Arts. Check, passed. And so how to do that, where to put their property, how to manage their things. And we will cultivate that, as we did in a typical year, in the remote model as well. So having that sense of meeting classmates and then knowing yourself how and what to do things. We connect to home through students writing. We consider drawing of pictures and writing of words to be the same thing. Writing, messages that they take home, messages that they send to each other. The team, the individual teachers, and then sometimes the full team in the fall, send out messages a ton. You will find that the kindergarten teachers are the some of, if not the most communicative teachers you will experience across your career in public education. I just know that for a fact. Through sometimes daily emails, weekly emails, monthly calendars, communication, student-driven newsletters. So you have a sense of what's going on in school. We're cultivating and building that relationship to and with you through the students and directly to you. It's kind of two relationship channels that we are cultivating all the time, but especially in the fall. Excuse me, I'm just going to scroll down a little bit over here. I should have got this. Then, scroll, man. Okay. And then within that, then there is the content, the standards that we're working towards students achieving mastery with. And that we call that anchoring the learning. So they understand what we're doing, how we're doing it, and why we're doing it. What's the applicability to this? So we might be, we're doing snack here, but we also have plans for doing this as well remotely, where students get snack and then they, have 5 pieces, and then they get 3 more. So we'll be over the class and saying, so we have 5 pretzels, and now if we're taking 3 more, how many will that be? So they're hearing the verbal explanation around that. Already we're using some math terms. And they see the visuals as they have this, and they have their concrete operational, their example, their counters right in front of them. And so we help them understand that people add all the time. Simply reciting 4 + 4 = 8 is great, but if I give you a chance to show me that, can you? That's true learning. So anchoring that learning throughout that whole period. So we are learning this because, and then we explain and then provide those examples. In the fall, we talk about the September to December time as the place where we really anchor the kindergarten year. In my opinion, having taught all those other grade levels, we actually anchor the K-12 experience in those 3 months, committing a child to education, knowing yourself, knowing your peers, paying attention to the person up front, regardless of who that is, your personal classroom teacher as well as all the specialists, and understanding the dynamics of how that works. And as I often describe is, although we are content driven and we are standards driven, there's this much content happening, but there's this much behavioral, social emotional learning, self-management happening in the September to December model. And then it's that 16-day break away from school. It happens every single year. We call it January magic. It flips. And then what you have is this much content and this much self-management. The social emotional learning continues always. But this idea, if we've practiced so much of the self-management, students taking care of themselves, gradual release of responsibility, then the content can increase while that attention becomes less because students are more confident and more competent, and we can layer in and add more content in that next January phase. We have a very different focused student. The behaviors are much more independent, they're more self-reliant, they know where everything is, they know how to do it, they know how to get help, they know how to offer help from somebody else, they know how to problem solve, negotiate, take care of things that we would have done together. Sorry, still getting this here. We would have done together in the fall, but now they do more of it by themselves, so we can pay more attention to independent workers, small group instruction, and things like that in that January to March period. And then in the spring, the March to April period, we begin to make the connections to first grade. So again, the why we're learning this, but also how it links up to next grade. We kind of don't dismiss our own grade level, but we help them begin to look into the future of how this learning they will use in the subsequent grade. During the year, we talk about the 26 kindergarten words they learn, but we also start teaching other grade level words. And we use a rainbow coloring model. Kindergarten words are underlined in red or written in red, so those words pop out. They are the words more frequently seen in text or in writing. And so they pop out, and then we start talking about first grade words, which we underline in orange, second grade in yellow, etc. And so they're beginning to see how this learning they're doing today connects to future learning, whether it be first grade or further on. The content goes deeper. So again, we're always adding more and more layers at the beginning until we are doing so much more content in the spring, and then adding extensions. So how can this idea be reconfigured or convoluted to include a new consideration? So math might begin to pull in some science. Science begins to pull into math. We write about social studies in those ways, so it doesn't just feel like this is my reading time, but this is my learning time. And all of those pieces kind of weave in together. That's kind of somewhat terse. I don't know how long it went, but that was a somewhat terse layout of the kindergarten year that's about to unfold for you and your family. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your trust in enrolling in Bryant and sending your student to school this year. Still, along with all of and despite the many pieces that are just unknown, but if we look at what the kindergarten team was able to accomplish this spring, I really have faith in that. It's a nutty year for everybody, but it will be a powerful year for your student. And I don't use that word very often, so powerful, because what we can provide to students in a typical year and remotely is a true growth into becoming a solid student while still maintaining their individuality, remaining connected to their peers, feeling a commitment to the caregiving adults who surround them. We are joining your team. You've been caretakers and educators for all years until you brought your kids to our company. We have the good fortune of now joining you and being collaborative in bringing your child forward. Thanks so much for listening. See you next week.